Well, we're going to talk about Hangul. And Hangul, as you know, was the supreme invention of King Sejong. We talked about all the things that King Sejong did yesterday, or some of the things he did. I guess that's at the beginning. Okay. Um, so let's specifically talk about King Sejong and the invention of the alphabet. And by the end of the hour, you're going to be reading and writing Hangul. When King Sejong invented the alphabet, he did so over the objection of most of his court, but he did have the assistance of some of his scholars. One of his most famous assistants was a man by the name of Chung In-ji, and Chung In-ji was one of his few supporters. There are more people that are famous for opposing Hangul, which seems a real strange thing because Hangul was such a genius idea in the first place. But why would people oppose it? Well, the reason you oppose it is you've got Chinese, and Chinese is the classics. This is analogous to the European situation where Latin was the rule. And this is like a Frenchman or a German or an Englishman saying, why write in the Roman script? Why write English? Why write German? Why write French when we've got Latin? You know, Latin is the language of the gods, virtually. And so why should we be concerned with this ordinary script? And King Sejong felt that there should be a script for everyone. He said he had great sympathy for the people. That's why he wanted to develop this alphabet, because not everyone could learn these complicated Chinese characters. And so, but there were people who were opposed. The most famous was a man by the name of Che Ma-li. When I first started teaching at BYU, one of my colleagues was named Che, like Mrs. Che, our executive here. Che is a very common surname. Well, some of the people named Che are descended from Che Ma-li. And one of my colleagues at BYU when I first started there was a descendant of Che Ma-li. And his name was Che Su-young, and we were talking about this and that. And one day I said, what Che family do you belong to? He said, oh, such and such. I'm a descendant of Che Ma-li. He was embarrassed to admit that he was a descendant of Che Ma-li because he was the opposition, this sort of force for ignorance, in effect, or elitist education so that the common people couldn't be educated. Chung In-ji was one of those who wanted to help him. And Chung In-ji said that the king has invented an alphabet that's so clever that dullest of people can learn it in a day, and bright people can learn it in the time it takes to go to the bathroom. Now, maybe that depends on how long it takes you to do your business in the bathroom, but it can be learned fairly quickly, is the idea. So here it is, King Sejong and Hangul. I've romanized it a couple of ways because there's a couple of romanization systems out there. I wrote it first just in plain old English, but it can be written with the diacritical mark over the U, and we'll talk about why that's there a little bit later. Or it can be written with the EU, which is the modern romanization. There was a brand of Koreans who don't like all the diacritical marks, especially in the modern computer age. And they said, let's not use diacritical marks, let's use two vowels. So the two vowels, the EU represents this other U, and I'll talk about what that is as we get into it. So here's King Sejong. Here's a quotation. If the people prosper, how can the king not prosper with them? And if the people do not prosper, how may the king prosper without them? So he's very much a king of the people, which is a very important Confucian idea. The ideal of Confucianism is a goodly king who serves the people, who's concerned about the people. That's one of the hearts of Confucianism. So here he is, and we talked about this earlier or yesterday. He did things with, he reformed the laws. I didn't have that on my screen yesterday, but that's an important one. He reformed laws. Music, I did talk about his music effort and his composer, his musical assistant, Pa Gyen. Literature, he did a lot in literature. He had a set of fonts created to publish literature. Medicine, we talked about that yesterday. Astronomy, we talked about that yesterday. Agriculture, rain gauges, and also agronomy textbooks to teach ordinary people how to improve their farming techniques. And then, of course, the crowning achievement was Hangul, the alphabet. So King Sejong proclaimed this alphabet in 1446. You sometimes see 1444, you sometimes see 1447. Those are both possible, but it was proclaimed in 1444, but he pulled it back and revised it a bit and then proclaimed it again in 1446. So we tend to look at 1446 as the date. I don't know where the 1447 comes from. It might be in the configuration of the lunar calendar, but at any rate, you see all of those dates. But 1446 is probably the best of the dates. Hangul is the only alphabet in the world that's A, widely used, that's invented by a person whose name we know, whose principles we understand, the principles, the underlying principles are explained, and let's see, there are another couple of points on this, and it's the only alphabet that's celebrated in a national holiday. Now, you can look at some of these other things. You can say, well, Tecumseh, was it Tecumseh that invented the Cherokee alphabet, or was it Sequoyah? Sequoyah invented the Cherokee alphabet, but it has limited use. Okay, there are some, Saint Cyril, maybe you can say his was an alphabet that has wide use that's attributed to one person, but we don't know the principles on which it was based. It's basically based on some Latin alphabet aspects and some Slavic elements that he needed to have in there. So the Cyrillic alphabet is attached to one person, like Sejong is a person here, but we don't know the principles upon which the Cyrillic alphabet was based. So it's the only alphabet. Sejong's alphabet is the only alphabet that we know the person that invented it. We know the date on which it was proclaimed. It was October 9th in 1446. And so October 9th is the day of the Korean Alphabet Day. And it's the only alphabet that's celebrated in a culture as the Alphabet Day. I mean, think about it. It's just incredible to think that one day a year you stop and say, this is our Alphabet Day. This is where we stop and think about this is the source of our literacy, the source of the keystone of our educational system, you see. And so it's an alphabet that's unique in that regard. And at various times along the way, various linguistic groups have declared it the world's most scientific alphabet and the most logical alphabet and that sort of thing. So it has a lot of unique characteristics. It was a simple, clever set of consonants and vowels. Now this is very important because Sejong understood linguistic principles that underlie language. All of us human beings speak some kind of language. Some of us speak 2 or 3 different languages, and languages have certain principles upon which they are structured. And one of the concepts of language structure is that there are consonants and that there are vowels. Now, the Chinese didn't seem to understand that because they didn't use a phonetic set at all. They used pictographs or ideographs, which is wonderful too. The Japanese didn't understand that there's a separate set of vowels and consonants, because the Japanese kana system, writing system, is older than Hangul, but it is not based on consonants and vowels. It's based on syllables. And when you do the Japanese alphabet, it's not an alphabet, when you recite the syllabary, you recite it in syllables. It's ka, ki, ku, ke, ko, nani, nu, no, mame, mu, me, mo. And the first sound is ka, ki, ku, ke, ko. The first sound ka, you can't separate the K from the A. It's ka. It's ka. Ki is ki. You can't separate the K from the I in ki. The Japanese is a syllabary because the Japanese didn't understand the concept of consonants and vowels that King Sejong did. Yes, sir. Well, I, E, U, E, O is the vowel set without a consonant attached to it. But I, E, O is the 4th or 5th of the set. You say kaki, kukeko, nani, nu, neno, mame, mu, me, mo, sasi, su, se, so, I, E, O. You see, the I, E, O is not seen as a set of vowels. It's seen as a set of pronunciation, set of syllables that go with the kaki, kukeko, nani, nu, neno, sasi, su, se, so set. So even though that one set is vowel without consonants, it's not seen as such. It's not seen as this is a set without consonants. Or if it is, only that is. The rest of the set are not, you can't separate the consonants from the vowel. Yeah. Does that make sense? Okay. So the idea that Sejong focused in on consonants and vowels was a fairly sophisticated linguistic concept at that time. With only 24 vowels, or 14 consonants and 10 vowels, Hangul is capable of expressing virtually any sound. I'm a little critical at this point because Koreans like to brag about Hangul can express any sound. It can express the sound of a dog barking, the sound of a chicken clucking, and any kind of animal sound. It can make any kind of sound. Well, it can make any kind of sound except an F, and a V, and a TH, and a Z. Those sounds do not exist because there was no necessity for them. Now, it turns out that in the original Hangul, there was a triangle that was apparently kind of a Z. It's expressed as a Z, but it was probably more of a Chinese Z sound. But because the Koreans adopted that apparently to represent this Chinese sound that didn't exist in Korean, it fell out of use. There were 4 letters that were dropped from the original proclamation. There was the Z sound, there was a kind of extended NG sound, there was a soft H sound that were all lost consonants, and there was a short A apparently that was in the original Hangul but has been dropped. So we lost 4 of the letters, but it's no great loss. We really didn't need them all that badly apparently because Hangul functions just fine without those 4 letters today. So we're talking about 14 consonants and 10 vowels that are survived. Originally it was, I guess, 17 consonants and 11 vowels. But capable of expressing any sound, okay? And designed to be learned in only one day. We talked about that. Or if you're really bright, and the time it takes to go to the bathroom. We'll see how bright some of you are. Here's the first page of the proclamation where it says, Sejong's officially made Hunminjeongum. Hunminjeongum is the word for Hangul in the old days. We say Hangul today, but that's only a post-1948 expression. Because Han, to represent Hanguk, the name of Korea, is a Syngman reinvention. Before that time, the country was called Chosun, and North Korea is still called Chosun. So in North Korea, Hangul is called Chosun-gul. Gul meaning writing. To write well is to have good kulshi. Kul is to write. And it's important to understand that when we talk about Hangul, we're talking about the alphabet or the script, but not the language. The language has been there, okay? And sometimes people talk about King Sejong inventing the Korean language. No. The language was there. There were ways of writing pure Korean language in Chinese script. There was a system called Edu where you take Chinese script and use it in a uniquely Korean way. It's kind of bastardizing the Chinese to write Korean. And there was a system of writing Korean that was done that way. It's a very sophisticated system. And you would look at it and you'd think it's Chinese, but a Chinese reading it would be nonsense because some of it was to use phonetic expressions for Korean grammatical points, if that makes any sense to you. If it doesn't, we'll just go on. But it was called Hunminjeongum originally. In North Korea, it's called Chosun-gul. In South Korea, it's called Hangul. But originally, it was called by the name of the proclamation, Hunminjeongum. It was also called Ongul, which is also called common script, and it's also referred to as woman's script, because very often Hangul, at one point in the later Chosun period, as time went by, the women would use Hangul primarily, and men would use Chinese characters. So Hangul was often called Ongul, which meant women's script or common script. Okay, so here it is. It says, King Sejong made this proclamation called Hunminjeongum, and King Sejong made it himself. That can't be overemphasized. Very often there's an assumption that if the king does something, he takes credit for his counselors of having done it. And I've heard a lot of people say that, the counselors helped him and he did it. Well, they did help him, but he did it. That has to be emphasized. He did it. It was his idea, and he did it over the objection of his scholar officials. Now, he did have people that helped him, and he sent some of his brightest linguists to China to investigate what other languages were like. And maybe that's where he got the idea of consonants and vowels. As it turns out, if you believe in providence, maybe this is providence operating here, because as it turns out, as luck would have it, one of the Chinese officials that was very good at language was banished. And the way banishment worked in the old days is you were banished internally. You know, in the Western world, if someone is banished in the fairy tale, they're sent out of the kingdom. They're on their own. But in China, in Korea, you didn't send them into some other kingdom where they can cause some trouble. You kept them on the perimeter of your kingdom where you could keep your eye on them out there on the frontier. Well, someone got in trouble in Beijing, and they were banished where? To the Korean border. Oh, how fortunate was that for the Korean linguists, because when they went, there were 17 missions that they sent them. The King Sejong sent his ministers up north to visit with this guy in China and say, well, what do the Mongols do? What does the Sanskrit do? And he understood all these languages and scripts, and so he was a great help to King Sejong in his banishment to the Korean border. So he had some help, but it was Sejong's idea, and he pushed it forward. Here's the front page of the Proclamation. Well, it's a set of consonants. Oh, that doesn't show up very well, does it? We'll get into some other things here. The alphabetical order is a K, an N, a T, an RL, an M, a P, and an S, then an NG, a CH, an aspirated CH, an aspirated K, an aspirated T, an aspirated P, and an H. That's the alphabetical order. And when you learn the alphabet first and you want to know the alphabetical order because you're going to look up something in the dictionary, in the old days we had these books called dictionaries. These days, my students all use online stuff. It's all in digital things, you know. It's all on their phone. Nobody looks up a dictionary, but still you have to look it up in alphabetical order. The alphabetical order we always learned when we were first learning it was Canada, Rampasa, lamps. So you remember Canada lamps, and that helps you to remember what the order is of the alphabet as you look up words. And then the second part here is fairly easy to do too. Well, here are the vowels. As an A, O, U, E, then a and a Ya, O and a Ya, O and a Yo, U and a U, and then a couple of combined vowels here. So, well, I've got another thing here. We'll talk about that in a little more detail here in a minute. The key concept is that when King Sejong proclaimed the alphabet, he said the first letter is a K, a kiek, which is either a K or a G in our script. It can be a K or it can be a G. What's the difference between a K and a G? The word you're looking for is voicing. The G is voiced and the K is voiceless. Otherwise, they're the same thing. And there are certain consonants in English that we look at as different things, whether they're voiced or voiceless. KG, TD, PB, CHJ. Those are the same thing that are two different things in English because we recognize the voicing or the voicelessness. In Korean, they don't recognize the voicing and the voicelessness because it occurs naturally. And what happens is with this first letter, this K sound, it occurs as a K, it's voiceless in an initial, in a final, or in a medial position when it comes with one of the other consonants. Otherwise, when it comes with a vowel or a nasal, it's voiced. So it's voiceless K or it's voiced G, depending on its environment, okay? So there's the first letter, and it's based on what your tongue does when it creates that sound. Now, King Sejong said that this K is a velar sound. The velum is this top of your mouth, right? Now, say for me K, 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 K. Where is your tongue? K, G, G. Say ka, ka, G, 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 ka, ka, G, G. Where is your tongue? It's stopping the airflow at the top of your mouth. And thus, linguistically, this thing is called a stop. In linguistics, there are several things that describe how you make these sounds. Linguists talk about this being your articulatory mechanism. I love that expression. It's your articulatory mechanism. And when we articulate with this mechanism, we do all sorts of things within nanoseconds, right? Say the word stop. What is going on? You've got a nasal, S, a T stop, a vowel, A, and a P stop. In an instant, you say stop. And you've done four things in one instant. And our ears recognize that just that quickly. Stop. Okay? And not only do we recognize as that sound, but that sound has meaning. It means don't do this or stop, or the policeman can say stop, but in linguistics, the stop is how this sound is created. And the stop means you stop air for a nanosecond over your tongue, between your tongue and your velum, and that's what makes the k sound. That's what makes the g sound. It's either voiced or voiceless, k or g. And it's this picture, it's this photograph, it's this snapshot of your k making that right angle arc against your velum that makes the first letter of the Korean alphabet. Now you know how to read the K. And you can look at it, and you don't have to think about, oh, is that a B or a C or what is that? Because it tells you, it's the picture of you're making that sound. Your tongue is stopping your air at the top of your velum. That is the first sound right there. The second sound, oh, here it is again. There's your K. The second sound is this one, the N. And the N sound, again, is when your tongue comes to create in this case, it's not a stop, it's a nasal sound, but your tongue comes against the alveolar ridge, or the back of your teeth, and it vibrates, and that is the N. Say N. N, okay? Now, the next sound, this isn't very clear, but let's do this. Let's go to this. Let's go to this. The N sound, here's a T and a D. I've got to get this with a lighter background, it'll be better. The T and the D are alveolar stops. Okay? Now, when you say an N, you're putting your tongue against your alveolar ridge and vibrating it. N, that's vibration. It's called a nasal sound, actually. If you use that same sound, that same position to make a stop, ta, 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 put your tongue in your N position and say not. So you say an N and a T at the same time, not. Where does your tongue move? It doesn't move, it stays the same place, but with the N it vibrates, with the T it stops the air for that nanosecond, and that's the stop, okay? So not shows you that the N and the T are connected. How are they connected? Well, in Korean, it doesn't show it very well here. Let me find a better place to show it. Okay, here it is. Here's a K, here's that N sound, and here's the T. Now notice the T is based on the structure of the N with a line going over the top of it. That line going over the top is the expression of the air that is released with that stop. So a T is visually an N with air going over the top of it, okay? So there's the first three letters, a K, an N, and a T, okay? The next the next letter is this RL letter. English speakers always like to make fun of Koreans, Japanese, and Chinese because they don't have good R's and L's. You know, they get their R's and L's mixed up. How do you like your fish? Do you like it raw? You know, and did you go to the court and deal with the raw? You know, raw and law, we get mixed up. All sorts of other things. English speakers are always making fun of Korean speakers, Chinese speakers for not getting their R's and L's correct. R and L is the same thing, you see, in Korean. And it depends on its environment. It acts like an R in certain environments. It acts like an L in certain environments. It's the same thing. And in linguistics, we call it a lateral. Some call it a liquid. And what it is the action of the tongue. And so what you have here is a picture of your tongue, and what your tongue is doing is it's rolling. Picture your tongue rolling. That's what that's a picture of. Your tongue is rolling, and think of your Spanish R, your rolled R. They feel your tongue rolling when you roll your R. That's what that symbol represents. So that symbol is the R or the L symbol, okay? The next symbol is the Chinese character for mouth. So that square may not look like a mouth to you, but to every Korean that knows 10 characters, he knows the character for mouth. That's a simple Chinese character. That's the Chinese character for mouth. It's pronounced gu, but it's the picture of a mouth. What's your mouth sound? A bilabial nasal is an M sound, okay? So take your M sound here and open it so that it has an opening here to it, and your M, if you open it, your bilabial stop is your P or B sound, right? P or B is the bilabial stop. P, B, okay, so that's that one. The next one is the dental sound, and that is a picture of your tooth. Let's go back and look at some of these pictures. That's a picture of your tooth right here. That's not a very good picture. But if you picture your tooth is a pointed object like so, that's your S sound. What's the tooth sound? It's called a sibilant, and linguistically we call it a sibilant. That's an S sound. So the picture like that is an S. Okay, so what have we done so far? In this first line, we've learned Canada lamps, right? There's Canada, Rama, Pa, Sa, Canada lamps. So we're over halfway there, and we only spent 10 minutes. I mean, that's good bathroom time. That's pretty good, you know. You've done it. Okay, now the rest, well, let's do one more, and then the rest are all going to be derivatives, okay? The next picture is of a circle, and that is of your throat. That's a throat nasal, a nasalized throat sound. And what's that? Ng, you know. And in English speakers, we always think about Chinese and consequently Korean as having a lot of ding dong dang sounds to it. That's a sound to it, okay? And so, and that's a picture of your throat. And if you think of that circle, you're looking down like someone's throat, like a dentist, and you see that circle of the throat, and it's vibrating. That's that NG sound. Now, one thing about the circle is it's also a zero in certain contexts. If you have a syllable that begins with a vowel, not a consonant, to show that it begins with a vowel, you use that sound as a placeholder, as a zero. So if a word begins with a or an an sound, like hello, annyeong hashimnika, the way you write that is you put the circle at the beginning to say we're starting with a vowel. Hello, we're starting with a vowel. Okay, that's what the circle means at the beginning. At the end of a syllable, it's the NG sound. Okay, so those are the key structural elements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The rest are all derivative. Okay. The next character is the CHJ sound, and it's a derivative of the S, you see. Now, this one is linguistically not very tight, but King Sejong and his advisors tended to see the CH, the ch sound, as a tooth sound similar to the S sound. It looks like an S, but more air. See, a line means more air, so it's not a S, it's a ch. Okay? So technically speaking, the CH is not a dental sound. It's an affricative, actually. But let's call it a dental sound, and let's go with it. And that's how you remember that the CH is a S with a line over the top of it. Well, the next sound is an aspirated CH. And so 2 lines over the S is the aspiration. If ch is 1 line, ch is 2 lines. Now, here we're into the weeds, because in English, we don't have aspirated sounds, except for emphasis. If I say, quick, kill the snake, I'm aspirating all over the place, but it doesn't mean anything differently than I say, quick, kill the snake, right? The aspiration does not have meaning. It's not a mnemic aspect. In Korean, it's mnemic. It has meaning. So if you aspirate, it's a different sound. It's a different meaning than if you don't aspirate. Okay, so that's a little bit of a technical thing that's not natural to English, but there we go. And it's the same then for the K, which is an aspirated one of these. You see, add one more line means one more air. So you take a K, add another line, that's more air. That's K. That's aspirated K. Then this is aspirated T. There it is. See it? And just add one more piece of air over it. Put your tongue in the N position. Add a little bit of air, add a lot of air, and you've got the aspirated T. Okay? And then this is the aspirated P. You take the P here, which is an open M, and reinforce it so it's a tightly structured M, or nasal sound, and you've got the aspirated P sound. Okay? So that's your bilabal aspirate. So these 4 are the aspirates, and these 4 are a little bit foreign to the English phonological system. But Korean has these aspirates, and they're important. And finally, there's this thing here. Now, what's the circle? That's your throat. What's the lines? Air coming from your throat. Here you have two lines of air. In the original Hangul, there was a one-line air, a soft H. But if you have a circle of a throat and two lines of air coming out of it, what is it? How are you today? Lots of air coming out of your throat, okay? So, ha, that's the H sound, okay? So you got all the consonants, you're done. Except now you got to learn the vowels, okay? Now the vowels are here. And the first one is this long line with a little line to the side of it. Now I told you that one of the letters we lost was a soft A sound. It used to be that in addition to the lines and the dots, there was just a dot. And just the dot alone was a soft A sound. But that's been gone, and it's been absorbed by this A here. And then if you have two little dots by the side of the vertical stroke, that's a ya. So this is ya. And this is an aw sound, and two lines make it a yaw. So you see how it works? That's where you get the Y by adding just two lines instead of one. Here's O, and here's yo. Here's oo, and here's you. And then finally a vowel we don't have in English. It's pronounced the closest you can get to that sound in English is when Ricky comes home and finds Lucy's doing something really bad, and Lucy's in trouble. Ricky's angry with Lucy. And what does Lucy go? Well, what does Lucy say? Ooh, she's in trouble. Ooh, that's that sound. Okay, but it doesn't exist in English. We have an ooh, we have a we don't have a okay? But and it's not a schwa, it's not but this is a non-existent sound, but it's Lucy when she's in trouble, when Ricky catches her doing something. It's, ooh, okay? And then finally there's the E. Okay? Now, I don't have it here. Let's do it. Luz, do you have a... I've got a pen right here. Let me get onto the board here for just a second. How can I get to the board here? Okay, you raise the screen for just a second for me. I couldn't find this on the. Here, I'll just do it right down here. I couldn't find this on the internet to post on here, but here's how you understand the vowels. Here is the yin-yang symbol. Okay, I've done it in green. You picture it blue and red. Okay, but the vowels go here. Here's ah. Here's o. See, 1, 2. Here's O, here's oo, and then in the middle here's and E. Okay, there we go. There are the four vowels. See, so the vowels are structured around this yin-yang symbol. Is the construct for it. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that. Now, one other thing to understand the vowels, understand how they're created. This is the George Bush moment, George H.W. Bush moment. Read my lips. Okay. Watch my lips. I'm going to say these vowels, and this will help you to get the sequence in order, so you'll know how the O and the where the different structure is. Okay, so the vowels go like this: ah, ya, o, ya, o, yo, oo, you, e. You see it? Go like that. You see that? Ah, ya, o, ya, o, yo, oo, you, e. So what's the first vowel? Ah. What's the second vowel? Well, ya. What's the next one? Aw, aw. Where is that one? It's halfway between ah and o. Ah, o. You see how it goes? So ah, ya, aw, ya, o, yo, ooh. You have to purse your lips. You're gonna kiss somebody. Ooh, you, Lucy, e. See how the vowels go? Ah, ya, oh, ya, oh, yo, oo, you, e. They're the vowels, okay? So that's it. We're done, boys and girls. Test time. We're going to see how smart you are. Oh, and we've got 40 minutes. I've been running like a house of fire thinking I was out of time. We got time for tests. We got time to do something. Okay, here are the vowels again. Can you do them? Ah, ya, ah, o, oo, e, ya, yo, you. You got it? Okay, I put that on here for you. You can have this PowerPoint if you want. There they are written out for you. And here I did this all with a diacritical mark. You'll sometimes in the new romanization see it as an EO. When you see an EO, it's not two vowels. It's not A-O, but it's this ah thing, this dark O, okay, or the short O. And here's the dark U or the short U, okay? So then there's ya, yo, you, okay. And now there are some combinations of these vowels. I told you we had it all. What we have all is the building blocks. And now we're going to start building. It's Tinker Toys. We're going to build these things together. And so here's your first set of simple vowels. Here's with the Y semivowel attached to it, okay? But you can also combine this one with this one, and you get this. And you combine this one with this one, and you get this. These two are both pronounced eh. A soul speaker and a purist will say there's a difference between the two. One is and one is ah. Do you hear the difference? I said not But Koreans can't tell the difference either. How do we know this? When a Korean introduces himself to a group, we got a new member of the group here tonight. Introduce yourself. My name is Kim Jae-shik. Oiemnida. He'll say, my name is Kim Jae-shik. Which Jae is it? It could be Ja or Ja. It could be either one of these. And he'll say it's Oi-e or it's I-e. He'll tell you that it's the A-e or the O-e. He'll tell you which of these two vowels it is, but they're pronounced virtually the same. There are some Soulites who claim they can hear the difference. There's some radio TV announcers that claim there's a difference, but for 98% of people, they're the same vowel. Am I right, Korean speakers? Majayo? Am I right? Yeah, I'm right. Okay. And then there's the semi-vowel Y equivalent of the yeah and the yeah, these two here. Then you can combine an O and an ah, and you get wa, oa. O and ah is wa. That means with, or together, or and, okay? Then you can take an O and combine it with this a. So this is order, if these are diphthongs, that's a trithong, okay? You got three of them there. Three letters together, and this becomes wah, and that word is the word for why. You know, someone comes into work late. Wah! Why are you late? What's wrong with you? Wah! So that's a simple word for why. Now look how your vocabulary is expanded already. Wah! This is wa. Oo is wa. And you put an N on the bottom of this, and you've got one, which is the money. You know, how much one did you spend? It's one. There's one. Then you got we, which is virtually the same pronunciation as this. Then you've got we, which is virtually the same as pronunciation as this. Then you've got we, and then you got uy. Okay, so these are some combined vowels that are a little bit difficult. Very often textbooks and people will talk about these as diphthongs. They're not diphthongs. They're digraphs. They're two things written together, but they are not a diphthong. What's a diphthong? A diphthong is a vowel that has two colors to it, two aspects of the vowel. Like the word wa is a diphthong. It's o and ah, wa. Okay, that's a diphthong. But and so this is a diphthong. This is a diphthong, but this is not a diphthong. But people will often call it a diphthong because it's written as two little letters. But technically, it's a simple vowel. And the point to be made here is your vowels in Korean are simple vowels. They're not diphthong vowels. In English, all of your vowels are diphthong vowels in English. You don't believe me? Listen to this. I'm going to recite the vowels of English. A, E, I, O, U. They're all diphthongs. A is A, right? A, E, even E in English is a diphthong because we say E. E is the English diphthong for E. A, E, I. E is I. O. We don't say O. In Korean, it's O. In English, it's O. It's a diphthong. It's O. But Korean vowels are all simple vowels. So one of the major universities in Korea is called Yonsei. Yunse. But there are people that look at it and Englishize it, and then to Englishize it, you put a diphthong on it. You want it to be a diphthong because you speak English. And the diphthong is Yunse, Yunse University. People say Yunse University. That's wrong. It's not Yunse, it's Yunse. Eh. It's a short, simple vowel. If you speak Japanese, short, simple vowels. If you speak Chinese, it's diphthongs. Chinese is mostly diphthongs. English is mostly diphthongs. Korean are simple vowels, okay? So most of these vowels should be pronounced in a simple, short way, not diphthong. Don't diphthongize them. Okay, let's talk about the voiceless, voiced aspect of the consonants, okay? Pronounce that word for me. You know that word now? I mean, you can read it. You don't know what it means. But what's that? There's a K and an A, ka, and a G and a U, ku. But as you pronounce this word, it's pronounced kagu. It means furniture. Okay? Kagu, kagu, kagu. Is there a K or is there a G? In Korean, it's the same letter. But as you write it, it's the same letter, but as you pronounce it, it's voiceless initially, it's voiced intervocalically. So it's pronounced kagu, kagu. It sounds like a K, it sounds like a G, kagu, okay? Now, I love to do this with Korean speakers in the audience because Korean speakers don't get it. They don't get it. They look at the K, and it's a K, and it's a K, and it's always a K, and it's nothing but a K. And they don't think it's a K and then it's a G. But it is. Linguistically, it's voiceless and then it's voiced. It's kagu. Okay? The next one is a good example. Pronounce this one for me. What's that say? Che-ju. You see it? Che. One of those vowels. Che-ju. What is Jeju? It's the island off the south coast of Korea. And how's it pronounced? Jeju. C-H-E-J-U. Jeju. Now, here's the heart of the romanization issue. The original romanization system was developed in the 1930s. It's called the McCune-Reischauer romanization system. And when McCune and Reischauer sat down as young students of Korean, they said, oh, wait a minute. This is voiceless sometimes, and it's voiced other times. When is it voiced and when is it voiceless? And there are rules for it. I just gave them to you. It's initially and finally, and with other consonants, it's voiced. If it's intervocalic or nasal, with vowels or nasals, I said it wrong. That's voiceless at the beginning, and it's voiced in the middle, okay? So initial, final, with other consonants, voiceless, K. With a vowel or a nasal, it's voiced, G, or C-H-J, okay? So this Jeju, the island, is pronounced Jeju, Jeju. It sounds like C-H, it sounds like J, Jeju. Now, the romanization rules are then, let's write it C-H-E-J-U. Well, Koreans come along and are romanizing for their friend. You should go buy a ticket to Jeju. Here's what you do. You write Jeju, and I'll write it down for you. It's Jeju. And they write it down in English for you, and the Korean writes down J-E-J-U. It's the same darn letter. Why should it be C-H? Why should it be J? It's the same darn letter as far as the Korean's concerned. And the heart of the new romanization system is they ignore that fact of voicing and voicelessness. They go on the spelling. So it's written J-E-J-U. So the new romanization will look at Pusan, the old city of Pusan. Pusan, Pusan. How's it sound to you? That's a P. P-U-S-A-N, right? The new romanization is what? B. And so the English speaker doesn't know that Pusan is still Pusan. It'll always be Pusan, but they see the B, and now they call it Busan, you see. And so the romanization system is really complicated, and frankly, there's no way to win. There's no way to win. There's no perfect system. The phonology of English, the phonology of Korean is so different on this voicing and voicelessness that you can't get a perfect system. You just have to be aware that it's this voicing, voiceless thing that's making the problem, okay? So you've learned Kagu and Jeju, and through this you've learned that there's voicing and voicelessness, and you've learned that it's a natural phenomenon, that it's voiceless initially and it's voiced intervocalically. You with me? Am I going too fast for you? Anybody want to get off the bus? We're doing okay, aren't we? Okay. Pronounce that for me. Han. H-A-N, right? Han, you got it? Everybody with me? And then K-U-K, K-U-K, Hanguk, right? But the rule says that the interval vocalic G following a nasal will be a G sound, right? So it's not Hanguk, it's Hanguk. What kind of tires do you buy when you go to the store? You see the H-A-N-K-O-O-K tires? They're all over America now. They're very successful in America. Korean tires, H-A-N-K-O-O-K. American looks at it and says Hankook, right? Or Hankook. It's cook, right? K-O-O-K, cook. But it's not cook, it's gook, Hanguk, okay? So there's another example. Now, there's a trick in pronouncing Korean, and that is, this is a real big problem. Because Koreans love to say, King Sejong invented the perfect alphabet. It's phonetically absolutely correct. And what you see is what you get. You pronounce it just the way it is. It's not like English, where though, T-H-O-U-G-H, is not pronounced the, it's pronounced though, you know. And Korean is not like English with all these archaic spellings. It's what you see is what you get. It's a lie. It's a lie. What you see is not what you get, because Hanguk, with a K, Hanguk, when you say Hangungmal, Hangungmal means Korean as a language. Hanguk means Korea. Korean as a language, or Korean speech. Mal is speech. What happens is the K changes to an NG. The K changes to an NG. It's pronounced Hangungmal. Why? Because this voicing voicelessness thing that we're messing with also says that if one of these stops is followed by a nasal, the stop turns into a nasal. So Korean becomes Hangungmal. So if you're telling somebody that you went to Korean class today and you learned how to read Hangul and you can speak a little Korean and you can say Hangukmal hamnida, you can't say Hangukmal, you have to say Hangungmal. Hangungmal, okay? So that's a little tip, a little trick that it's not what you see is what you get. Oh dear, I got two hands up, got trouble. Okay, John? Oh. The first Ian, Han? NG, Hangungmal, that's right. That's an NG too. John, the other John. I got two Johns here. Are you John? Yeah. M is the nasal. There's three nasals in most languages, an N, an M, and an NG. Those are the three nasals, okay? Okay. So K becomes nasalized into NG. Okay, read the one across the top. What does that say? What's this? Com. Is that com, everybody? Com. What's this one? Kamsa. Yeah, you said it right. Kamsamnida is correct. Read it for me, though. It says kamsa. What's this? It says hop. That says hop, does it not? That's H-A and a P there. That's hop. Hop, right? But we don't say kamsa hopnida, do we? Here again, what you see is not what you get. This is a natural sound change. The P followed by an N. What's the rule? Nasal will nasalize a preceding stop. How do you nasalize a P? It's an M, right? A P nasalized becomes an M. So, and then it finish off with da, so it becomes kamsa hamnida. Okay? Now, one other rule to cheat, this is a 101 class, but I'll give you a 102 rule, okay? And that is, in Korean you have H deletion is the rule of thumb, H deletion. They don't pronounce their H's. They don't pronounce their H's. They're like Liza Doolittle, you know. In Hartford, Hereford, Hampshire, hurricanes hardly happen. And the Koreans speak that way. They don't say 감사합니다. If you say 감사합니다, you'll sound like you just got out of the first class. And I want you to sound like you just got out of the second class. I want you all to be second class. So you should come out saying 감사합니다. 감사합니다 is the way it's really pronounced. It's 감사합니다. If you want to be strict about it and say 감사합니다, you'll sound like you sound bookish, like you just got out of the first class. One of the funny rules about Korean, and as I've watched younger people learn Korean over the years, there's often arguments. It's pronounced 감사합니다. No, it's pronounced 감사합니다. No, it's pronounced 감사합니다. It says 합니다. Well, let's ask a Korean. Say thank you for me. And the Korean says 감사합니다. And the first guy says, see, it's 감사합니다. And says, no. Say it slowly. Okay. 감사합니다. See? Both sides win, depending on how fast you have your native speaker say it, you see. But the truth is, that they say it faster, and you delete the H. And you delete the H and you run these two A's together. 감사합니다. 감사합니다 is what it's pronounced. What are we saying when we say 감사합니다? I assume you know this. Am I assuming too much? What's 감사합니다? Thank you. Thank you. That's a good 101 word. The first word you need to learn. Thank you. 감사합니다. Okay, so when you go into your Korean store, when you go into your Korean market, when you go into your Korean restaurant, and they do something nice, you get your order, say 감사합니다. 감사합니다. Okay? So that's what I wrote here. It's pronounced this way, 감사합니다. But if you write it this way, people are going to laugh at you, You pavo? You don't even know how to write. Pavo means dummy. Okay. You'll learn that and forget all the other things. Let's see. What did I put here? This is a Korean concept that Koreans like to say only Koreans have. Pronounce this for me. The S in the final position is pronounced like a T. This is one of these tricks. And this is pronounced mot, mot, mot. And Koreans like to say only Koreans have mot. No, other people have mot. What is mot? Mot is a sense of class, a sense of taste, a sense of being with it, a sense of style. It's what? Elan. It's elan is what it is. And you're pretty. You have a nice scarf on. She's a motjengi. A motjengi. Motjengi is a jengi is a one who has. And so if you have some style, see, she's very pretty, got a nice scarf. She's a motjengi, mot. And if something is really nice and classy, it has mot. Similar to mot is mat. See, there's mot, there's mat. What's mat? You're going to the restaurant and it tastes good. It's spicy, it's salty, it tastes good. Well, you want to say it tastes good, so you say 맛이 있습니다. 맛이 있습니다. 맛이 있습니다. 있습니다 means it is or it has. And mat is flavor or taste. Okay? So mot is flavor or taste in a style sense. Mat is flavor or taste in a literal sense, And do you have any friends that the only taste he's got is in his mouth? Did you ever say that? The only taste he's got is in his mouth. So if you have taste in your mouth, it's mat. If you have taste outside your mouth, in your sense of being, then you have mot. Okay, so there's mat and mot. Is that good? You doing okay? Everybody happy? Yeah?
The S becomes a T.
S becomes a T. Why is that?
Is that just like again, is it based on the mouth?
Yeah. Okay, you want to know why? I'll tell you why. We're getting into 102. We're getting into the weeds here, but the reason is consonants are not released in Korean. A consonant at the final is not released. Make your bed. In English, we release the consonants. Make. your bed. Bed. Okay? In Korean, to say make your bed, they'd say make your bed. And because you don't release the consonant, it often, most consonants turn into a T. Okay? And so even an S turns into a T, so that's mot. But here, the S is followed by a vowel, so it's released, and it becomes mashi. You could say mat, this thing really has taste, mat. But if you make it into a sentence, you say mashi 있습니다. Okay? So on the one hand, Hangul is really, really simple. Hangul is really, really complicated. The language is a beast. It's a real beast. And to learn Korean is really a difficult task. I gave a talk at DLI 2 years ago. Do you know DLI? The Defense Language Institute. It's in Monterey, California. It's the big language school for the Defense Department. And they categorize languages according to the difficulty it takes for a person to learn the language. Difficulty meaning the length of time it takes to get to a certain level of performance. And for Spanish, it takes how many weeks? To get to they want you to get to a 2 + 2 + 2 level, basic performance. And that's basic functional performance. And how long does it take in Spanish to get to a 2 + 2 + 2 level? 27 weeks. How long does it take to get to that level in German? 36 weeks. How long does it take to get to that level in a Category 3 language like Russian? 48 weeks. How long does it take to get to that level in Korean? 72 weeks. More than a year. They actually cut it down to a year, but it really takes 72 weeks. So those are Category 1, Category 2, Category 3, Category 4 languages. I gave a talk at DLI, and I said, Korean is a Category 5 language. I made a new category, and I pointed out how it's more difficult in these various category rankings than the other Category 4 languages. So Korean is really a beast of a language. Hangul is really simple, you see. So there are two different things operating here, yeah. Highly. Not so much gender, but all sorts of case and all sorts of other things. Honorifics are an aspect of inflection, and all sorts of things of tense, intention, volition, didn't want to do it. All sorts of things can be inflected. It's a highly inflected language. Yeah.
Is Chinese or Japanese in Category 4?
Chinese and Japanese are in Category 4 for different reasons. Chinese is not inflected hardly at all. The Chinese is there because of the script, the difficulty of the text, and the tones, the tonal aspect. Japanese shouldn't be a Category 4 language. Japanese is simpler, phonetically at least. Linguistically, it gets to be kind of complicated. You want another example? What's that say? Okay, placeholder, N. Another N, and what's this? Annyeonghaseyo is correct. Yeah. What's that mean? Hello, how you doing? Simple greeting, annyeonghaseyo. It's short for annyeongha십니까. You'll hear that. That's the formal greeting, but it's no less useful to do it in an informal way, to say annyeonghaseyo. Annyeonghaseyo. Okay, so 감사합니다. 안녕하세요 are the two things you should learn first and foremost, okay? And after you've learned 안녕하세요, that's hello, then you want to say goodbye. Yeah. Here is 안녕히 가세요. 안녕히 가세요. What's that? Bye-bye, farewell, okay? But it gets complicated. I tell you, as soon as you get into Korean, you're in the weeds. Because to say goodbye, it's one thing for if they're going, it's another thing if you're going. So if they're going, you say 안녕히 가세요. Ka means to go. If they're going. You say 안녕히 가세요, which means 안녕하세요. 안녕 means peace. The shalom, okay? And 안녕히 가세요 means go in peace. And the corresponding thing is if you're going and the other person is staying, keshida means to stay. So if you're going and they're staying, you say 안녕히 계세요. Okay? So I'm not a New Yorker. I'm going to go back to Utah. And so I'll say 안녕히 계세요. You stay in peace. And you say to me, as you get on back to Utah, 안녕히 가세요. Okay? So you've learned hello, goodbye, and thank you. Huh. You are articulate, right? Are we done?